All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is John McDougall. I am the event coordinator at Murder by the Book in Houston. And we're so excited to bring you another virtual event this evening. Earlier this afternoon, we were chatting with Adele Parks, Lisa Jewell, and JT Ellison. And if you missed that and want to catch it, you can catch that on the store's Facebook and YouTube channel. So we're going to get started with Annalee Huber and Tessa Arlen in just a few minutes. But while we give everybody a couple of seconds to click over once they get the live notification, just do some general store announcements. So if you have not come to visit us in a while, the store is open for browsing. We're still limiting it to 6 people in the store at a time and asking that you wear masks when you come in. We know that the store is a small space, so we're doing 6 people because between that and staff gives everybody a chance to social distance. We've got some really great virtual stuff coming up. At the end of the month, we're going to be chatting with Victoria Thompson and C.S. Harris. That's going to be on April 28th. C.S. Harris's new book just came out today. And we're super excited because I don't know that Victoria Thompson has ever actually been to the store. So we're excited to get to do something virtual with her. And then this Friday, I'm going to be talking with Carrie Barrett at 1 in the afternoon about her new book, The Smuggler's Daughter, which is a really great twist on Daphne du Maurier's Jamaica Inn if it was kind of a contemporary police procedural. So you definitely want to come back for that. We have Independent Bookstore Day is coming up on April 24th. We're super excited for that. We'll have a bunch of Independent Bookstore Day exclusive items. And what we're really looking forward to is we are partnering with the Mystery Writers of America to host a panel for this year's Best Novel Edgar nominees. So we'll have all 6 of the nominees together for a panel that afternoon. So definitely check that out. As I mentioned, if you've missed any of our recent virtual events, you can catch those all on either the store's Facebook or our YouTube page. We've got over 200 up there now, covering pretty much every subgenre of mysteries. So there's something out there for everybody. We're so excited tonight. We're going to be chatting with Annalee Huber, whose newest book, A Wicked Conceit, just came out today. And Tessa Arlen is going to be chatting with her. Tessa Arlen is the author of the Poppy Redfern books. Her most recent one, Poppy Redfern and the Fatal Flyers, came out in December. And if you do go back through the YouTube videos, you can actually see Anna interviewing Tessa when that book came out. So I'm going to bring them out and get us started. While they are chatting this evening, if you have questions for either author, please feel free to post those in the comments either on Facebook or YouTube, and I will get to those. We'll leave a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. And also just our general disclaimer, we haven't had any issues, but sometimes we get some spammers that pop up, and we'll leave comments asking you to click a link to watch the event. You're already watching the event. You don't have to click away. You definitely don't have to give anybody your credit card info to watch it. So I think I've got all of our kind of general info out of the way. So let's bring our authors on. We're going to start with Annalee Huber. How are you tonight, Anna?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's so good to see you.
You too.
So I think you might actually be, if not the person we've chatted with the most, you were definitely tied for the person that we've chatted with most between the Deadly Hours short story collection or anthology, between your new Verity Kent book that came out in October, and then the event with Tessa, and now this one. So it's the fun part about this is we get to chat with people that we don't get to see nearly as often. So it's good to see you this evening.
Been great. Yeah. Nice to see you too.
So as I mentioned, her new book, A Wicked Conceit, which is the newest Lady Darby mystery, just came out today. And Annalee Huber is the Daphne Award-winning author of the national best-selling Lady Darby Mysteries and the Verity Kent Mysteries. She's a summa cum laude graduate of Lipscomb University in Nashville, Tennessee, where she majored in music and minored in psychology. She currently resides in Indiana with her family and is hard work on her next novel. And now let's bring out Tessa Arlen. How are you tonight, Tessa?
I'm fine. Lovely to be with you.
Thank you so much for doing this with us again. And so, as I mentioned, Tessa's most recent book is the second book in the Poppy Redfern series, Poppy Redfern and the Fatal Flyers, which came out in December. But in June, she's going to have a new book coming out called In Royal Service to the Queen. It comes out June 29th. It is listed on our event page, so if you guys are interested in that, you can definitely pre-order that on the website. And we'll leave a little bit of time later to chat with Tessa so we can hear some more about that upcoming release. But she is the... Tessa Arlen was born in Singapore, the daughter of a British diplomat. She's lived in Egypt, Germany, the Persian Gulf, China, and India. An Englishwoman married to an American, Tessa lives on the West Coast with her family and 2 corgis. So I'm going to let the two of you guys get to it. I'm going to pop away and just sit back and watch from behind the scenes. As I mentioned, if anybody has questions for either author about any of their books, please post those in the comments, and I will see you guys in a little bit.
Thank you.
So Anna, congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
Book
It's
9.
lovely to chat with you again. I know, right?
Book 9, and I'm halfway through and loving.
Thank
And
you.
one of the first question that springs to mind is Bonnie Brock. What a great. So where did you get the inspiration for the plot of this book? And tell us about Bonnie Brock and the plays that.
Sure. Yeah. So I know Bonnie Brock is such a fun character. My readers love him. They're always asking for him to come back. He's such the dangerous rogue that, you just can't help but love him, even though he's such a scoundrel. And it's so funny because when I first wrote him, he was supposed to be just like a one-off character, like one scene. And like, he was like, I'm not going anywhere. No, I'm sticking around. And so he just, kind of snowballed. And he was one of those characters in my subconscious. So I knew I always wanted to get back to Edinburgh, and this was the perfect book to do so, since Kira is so very pregnant and she wants to have the baby born in Edinburgh with the physician that her sister had. So I was reading a book. It's actually called Murder by the Book is the name of the book. It's by Claire Harmon, and it inspired basically the whole plot of this book. It's about a real murder that took place. Lord William Russell was murdered in London in it's either 1839 or 1840. So it's about 10 years later. And it's in the era of the Newgate novels, which were this genre of novels that were basically about criminals, and they were almost glamorizing these criminals, and they were hugely popular. And there was one in particular called Jack Sheppard. He was this thief from the early 1700s, and he actually escaped from Newgate numerous times. And William Henry Ainsworth, he was a huge author at the time. He wrote a book called Jack Sheppard, and it was about this thief, and he it was this romanticized, version of a criminal, and it just blew up. It was so popular. And then all the theaters in London and all over the UK created their own productions of Jack Sheppard. They made these plays because at that time they didn't have to pay the author for the rights to use their work. So he was everywhere, and there was these Steve Cant songs that were like hugely popular, even in the ballrooms of like the upper class. They're singing these Steve's Cant songs. They have no idea what they're singing about, but they're hugely popular. Their children are playing them on the violin. The cathedral in Edinburgh had the bells played it at one point. I mean, it was crazy. It was just like nowadays. We have all these popular things. Well, then this murder happened, and the valet had said that he was basically inspired by the play. And so then it was this huge scandal that these novels and these plays, that they were causing people to become criminals, And so I thought, oh my goodness, what a great, here I have Bonnie Brock, who is the head of a criminal gang, the biggest gang in Edinburgh. He's this Robin Hood figure. He's larger than life. He's never, every time he gets arrested, he gets out of it because the populace helps him. What if there was a book written about him? What if it revealed all these things that he didn't want revealed? What if there was plays? I mean, so it was just too perfect not to use, and such great history too. So it was a lot of fun.
So he is almost becoming your arch nemesis.
A little bit, although it's fun to play with him because he causes Kira engage so many problems, and he is such obviously a dangerous man, but he also helps them in ways. So I love that he's black and he's white. I mean, it's such a contrast. It's like, he's bad, but he's good. So you never know what to expect from him. So it makes a lot of fun to play with. And so Kira and Gage never know what to expect. So there's a lot of ways you can go.
Well, I love him. I mean, he's almost a cult figure. and I love his self-dramatization is wonderful. So, but there are a lot of struggles in interpersonal relationships in your whole series, and of course in this book. What drew you to explore those types of conflict in relationships? What was it that drew you to that?
So I write a mystery series, but I always think of it as the books are really about the characters. I mean, that's the heart of the book. That's really what I'm writing about. And the mysteries just happen to be the plot that confine them, I guess is what I would say. And so for me, it always comes back to that. And it comes back to, you know, all of us we all have these relationships with siblings, with loved, with the people our husbands, wives, our significant others, you know, our friends. I mean, we all can relate to these relationships. And so exploring that and how they really developed and how relationships across all time have been the same. We've all, you know, nothing is new. You know, somebody has been through this before. And so, you know, it makes the characters more real. It makes them feel natural, and they create this whole world around themselves that it fully fleshes them out, you know, really as a person, you know, because you're not just an investigator, you know. So that was a big part of what drew me to doing that. And, you know, and I just feel like it adds so much depth to the stories. And I love that part too. I have readers who a lot of people say that that's their favorite part, the scenes between the different characters the recurring characters, or whether they're new, or, and I love throwing in new twists, and it's just a lot of fun. I mean, we have a new character for Gage that we now get to explore this new relationship. So, yeah.
So do you have, which is easier for you, the development of the characters or the development of the plot to the mystery? Which comes more naturally to your writing style, do you think?
I think that I plot the mysteries out, I think, more rigidly than the character interactions.
Yeah.
I will think through what conflicts are going to happen and how they will relate to the plot of the mystery plot. But for me, I like those character interactions, those scenes and things, those arcs to come about more naturally. And so for me, that means letting them happen naturally as I'm writing, which is why, you know, I plot, but I also leave a lot of room, because I always find that I come up with way better ideas, especially with the characters and how they're reacting to each other, and to let myself have that play. So I would say that they come more naturally, and the mystery plotting is more analytical.
Yeah. And sometimes do you find that your characters take over a little bit halfway through your story and show you new ways?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've stopped deciding who the murderer is until the end. I figure out who a couple people, because it kept changing, because my characters knew better than I did what was a better plot, you know? So, yeah. So and I love that play almost when you're writing, you know. I mean, like, I feel like if I plot it out too much, I miss all that play and creativity. So I find that to be fun. And then later I can smooth it out and edit it. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I love being told what to do by my characters. With setting, you know, your settings are very vivid. They're wonderfully drawn. I could have sworn you were a Scotswoman the first time, the first book. And, but you change location, as it were. I think you've come back. Have you come back to Edinburgh for this?
Yes. This is Edinburgh is the one that I've been to the most in the series. I think it's the only place I've come back to.
and that is for Kira to have her baby in Edinburgh.
Correct. Yes.
So when are they going to settle down?
Well, I don't know. Not anytime soon. I do get asked that. And I love moving them around, because I like getting to play with different settings. Mm-hmm. And I really find that settings are almost their own character. I mean, especially with whatever the plot is, I tend to gravitate towards Gothic plots a lot of times. That's just what I'm drawn to. And so, you know, a certain setting can really lend itself to that versus others. You know, the snowy Highland landscape versus Dartmoor versus London, you know, so I really love getting to play with those different settings. And I like traveling too. So it's like an excuse to get to learn about a new place and travel there and, you know, I guess indulge myself.
Yes, but also provide us with, you know, an escape to different parts of the UK. You ever going to go to America?
Am I ever going to start coming to America? I've been asked that. I would love to someday. You know, it's funny. I'm just drawn to the UK. I just am, especially the history of the 19th century. But I would love to maybe do something in colonial America. Maybe I'm drawn to like revolutionary America, that kind of setting. I don't know. I'd have to come up with the right plot, and I don't know. Maybe someday. So I don't have anything in the works right now.
Not for Kira Engage.
No, not for Kira Engage.
Out of the question.
I don't think it would surprise anybody that I would love to take them to Italy at some point, given Anthony's backstory and Kira and her art. But that's about as far afield as I am thinking of.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm happy. So Kira's going to have a baby.
Yes, she is.
I mean, how much is this going to change? Well, we all know that having babies changes life in ways we never, ever.
Oh, goodness, yes.
Right?
They complicate a lot of things, right?
It's the biggest shock that ever really happens to you. So, for Kira Engage, how do you see this changing not just their lives, but their inquiry, their business of inquiring? How is that? I mean, yes, but how do you see that happening?
I think it's going to be a really fine balance. I'm working on book 10 right now. So it's tricky. I have to say it's really hard, especially when infants are young. I mean, you can't just set them aside and walk away. I mean, especially if you're more of an involved mother, which at this time period, there was a shift. The mothers were, you know, the upper class women used to just send their children off to a nursemaid, and they took care of the child for the first, you know, years of its life. But at this time period, there was this shift, and I just really couldn't see Kira being one of those moms who just did that. And I think that it's really hard for modern mothers to relate to it if she were to do that. So she is going to definitely be more involved. And so you can't just, you know, you have to be near your child every so many hours, you know, so so it's definitely going to affect her, and it's going to affect how she looks at the world. It's going to affect, you know, the pace of their investigations. And it's going to be one of the things that she's juggling and learning and adapting and struggling with. And Gage too. I mean, you know, so it's definitely going to affect the series coming forward, and it affects, you know, even the characters around them. I mean, Lord Gage, you know, how is he going to react to all this? You know, what kind of grandfather is he going to be? So, I'm excited to explore that.
What kind of dad do you think Gage is going to make?
I definitely think he is more involved. He's going to be doting. Yes. He's going to be one of those dads. It's like, okay, she's wrapped around your finger, you know? So, you know, I think he's going to love having children. I just do. So he's that kind of guy.
Congratulations to both of them.
Well, thank you. On their behalf.
We all know how much parenthood stretches us, and in ways we never imagined.
Oh my goodness, yes.
We were skipping around out there in our carefree singletons world.
You think you'll be one mother, and then it just rocks you, and you're totally different. You know, I will never do this. And then you do.
Oh, I'll never do this. But the other thing too is also that whole thing that I was a little bit intimidated with my first baby and thought, you know, I mustn't make any mistakes because it would be unforgivable.
Right.
So I was really tense.
Yes, definitely. It's definitely such a learning curve with that first one. And then the second, it's just easier just because you've been through it before. So yeah, this will be her.
Yeah, just a little more offhand, which is nice.
So
yeah. So anyway, I was wondering about this in your last book, A Stroke of Malice. This is a total 360. No, 180. A Stroke of Malice, there were rumblings about the cholera, which was pretty terrible, the cholera epidemic.
Yes.
And
yes.
Caused by really bad sanitation, right?
Correct. Which they didn't know that at the time, but yes.
No. Or pipes into the gutter and water pumping
into the river, into the wells. Yes. Yeah. At the time, all they had to do was boil their water, but they didn't know that. They didn't. Yeah. Yes. Which. Yeah.
How is it for you to write about that kind of awfulness? Because it was pretty. It was a plague, really.
Correct. Yes.
In times of COVID.
It was definitely, I was in the midst of writing this book. So I had already written A Stroke of Malice. I was in the midst of writing A Wicked Conceit. I was in the depths of it, and then COVID hit, lockdown hit. And it definitely shifted things. It made it more difficult in the sense that, in a lot of ways, one of the ways was that we now had been through in modern times this, we had experience, but because we had 188 years more of medical experience, the way we dealt with it was way different than they did. And so getting that across to a modern reader and making it believable without them going, well, why aren't they wearing masks? What I mean?
Why are they boiling their water?
Exactly. So that was a big part of it. And also it shifted. I actually downplayed it more than I would have because I knew that by the time this book was published, people would be getting fatigued from all of it. They would not want to be experiencing another pandemic. You know what I mean? So I actually dialed back how much I included about it in the book. Because it's definitely there. It's definitely this ominous thing, but it's not what it would have been because I just knew people would not be ready for it. And I didn't want to write about it, quite honestly, in that depth. So, so in that sense, I will say for readers, you're not going to get COVID whiplash from reading about this cholera. So
it's more of a sinister presence.
Yes, exactly.
Than a detailed, which is so wise because it's true.
Definitely. Everybody is. They're ready to get moving on, but it really did inform me, but it also gave me a lot of hope having read about another pandemic because, seeing the advances we've made and seeing, the ways that people got through that, it's just, history repeats itself, in different ways, but it gave me, encouragement, I guess, to say also, as awful as it was, they made it through and things were changed. And there was always, and the way that people dealt with it, there were people that dealt poorly with it then. There were people that dealt with this poorly now, and it's just really fascinating to examine history and see that the same things happen. We all think everything's new, but it's not. It's all somebody reacted this exact same way 200 years ago.
I know, it's incredible because human nature doesn't change.
Correct.
Situation, our circumstances do, but we don't. And that is, I was wondering how that felt. Writing about that COVID pandemic. So back to your characters because they really are the heart of your story. You write great plot, and you do. I rarely guess, but then I'm not very bright at that sort of thing. I tend to go along, there are people who say, oh, it was a burning beacon right from chapter 2. And I was like, God, really?
I find there's 50-50. There's like people that are like that, and there's people that don't. So
I just go along with it. I used to with a Christie, like I didn't really want to know until she told me. But your characters started in conflict in book 1, The Anatomist's Wife. And so, now tell me how you managed to keep everybody on edge that way throughout their learning to trust and like and acknowledge and fall in love. Their first was their physical attraction and passion. Then they learned to like and trust one another. How did you see that whole from the beginning when you conceived of the first book and then the second and the third? How did you see that playing out?
For Kira and Gage? Yeah.
Yes.
Goodness, I have to think back about that. So for me, it was really important. Obviously, and everything is told through Kira's eyes. So right. Kira obviously notices that Gage is attractive, but she actually resists at first. She thinks it's this like mark against him because she's seen the way other women, she hates how they're, and so, but for me, a big part of it was establishing for her, because she's been through such a horrible first marriage, how different he was. Like, I always say a big signpost is early in The Anatomist's Wife, when they go down to examine the body and she gets sick and he helps her. How many men would bend down and help a woman who's just vomited? You know what I mean? That, like, to me, that's a red flag for readers that this is a good guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, it's all these little things that just keep adding up and they keep, and for him, even being intrigued by the fact that she's different. She's so different than anybody else she knows. And it's establishing that rapport and that kindness, and that basically they see in each other, they are complete each other. They are what the other person needs. And they also see in each other what they needed someone else to see in them. And so that's a big part of it for me. I think it's that gradually building in those little puzzle pieces that just mesh them together, and the physical part is definitely part of it. But for me, it's really the mental, it's the spiritual, it's the, soul of them understanding each other and really filling in the places and understanding each other and completing in each other in a way that, they've never been before, they've never seen another human being before. And so I think that's what it is, such a big thing for them. And that's really how I kind of just approached it. Just, I guess, filling in those gaps and still doing that. I love getting to work with the fact that they're married. Just because they're married doesn't mean that the romance ends. All of us that are married quite understand that marriage is work, so there's always things that come up. There's always challenges. Your difficulties don't end just because you said I do. So, for me, that continues. They're still moving towards each other. So,
and it's you who has to kindle the ongoing, not just respect and friendship, but the delight of being together.
Correct. Yes.
Which is what we hope for everyone.
Yes, we do.
So back then, in book 1, The Anatomist's Wife, did you, I'm sorry, I'm blanking. It's the beginning of the 1800s.
It's 1830, yes. Mm-hmm.
Just before Victoria comes.
Right, is Victoria. So, yes, yeah, the William IV reign. Yes.
Right.
She's in 36 or 37.
Yes, when they wore those appalling leg of mutton sleeves.
Yes, they're horrible. It's the worst
clothes.
The worst style era ever.
Oh, I don't know. I look back over history and think to myself, choose a period where you really are excited about the clothes. Yeah.
Yeah, the 1830s is not right.
1830s is very odd. Right, but what made you decide on the 1830s?
So I picked the 1830s for a couple reasons. One, it wasn't being used. There was a lot of Regency or larger George or the later Georgian, and there was a lot of Victorian, but nobody was doing William IV's reign, which is always tricky to me because I never know. It's not Regency and it's not Victorian. It's really technically late Georgian because they consider William IV, his George's son, George III's son. But it's a weird little era in the middle, and I thought nobody's doing this. There's so much good history here. There was so much upheaval, so many acts of parliament that were really critical that were being, passed. And also because I'd chosen to give Kira her background with the anatomy and the body snatchers and all of that. Burke and Hare were 1828, 1829. This was so coming to a head. London Burkers is 1831. And 1832, we finally will see the passing of the Anatomy Act. But it was such a, time of upheaval for that. And so when I decided to give her that backstory, I was like, it has to be set here because it just fits, it explains why she's such a figure of scandal with all of this, in the beginning. So, I love it. I'm so glad I picked the era because I've learned so much about it. And it's like, I have this little nugget of time that I know so much about that it feels like a lot of people don't. So I'd like to get to teach people about that, I guess. So,
well, I think I've always believed that when you write historical stuff, the period chooses you.
Yes, that's true. I never thought about it that way, but I think you're right.
Yeah. You, and then you get into it, as you said, and you start researching and reading, and then you're just blown away by the stuff you turn up, and you become sort of like a little buff, a little history buff for that era. But back to Gage and Kira, because I'm fascinated by the development of their relationship up to book 10 you're writing now, right?
Yes.
You have a title for it?
It's A Perilous Perspective.
Oh, okay. And they've just had a baby. Well, so what do you think what is it about Gage that Kira is attracted to? The kindness, because he can come off as a little bit
I think a big part of it is that he sees her. He sees her.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the simplest way I can put it. I mean, and there is a song called, I think it's called Red Balloon. It's by Mindy Gledhill. I'm going to say it wrong. But anyway, I love it. It's more of a modern song, but I always in my head, like if there was ever a TV show or movie of Kira and Gage, of the Lady Derby series, I just see them. That's the song that you can just see him seeing her, and she's seeing that he sees her. It's if you ever want to listen to you can go find that song and listen to it, and you will get it. It's everybody thinks I'm this certain way. They want to box me up, but you see me, and so I think that's a big part of it. He's a good man. He's honorable. I mean, he is protective. He's loyal to the people that he chooses. And, he has this complexity, and he seems like he's, so strong and so whatever, but she discovers he really has this weakness. He's very vulnerable deep within him.
And sensitive.
Yes. And she's almost the only person that ever gets to see that. And to fill that for him and to help him with that when he needed that. He needed her to help him to see that, to be there. And, we see that a lot in A Stroke of A Brush with Shadows. That's a big Gage book because we go back to his grandfather's home where he grew up, where his mother and him lived. And so there's a lot of development there. And I love that book for that reason. That's one of the special ones to me. But I think that's the big thing. They see each other clearly,
and they get
ways
it.
that no one else does.
Yeah. So the family, it also plays a huge part in your series. and the development of her relationship with her family. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have a very big family.
What? Where does that all come from?
I have a very big family. I have 5 brothers and sisters. And my husband has a big family, and I've grew up around my cousins. And so I think for me, it was just natural because I like my family. I like my siblings. I like my, sisters-in-law. And so, they're friends. They're my friends, and I feel really blessed and lucky that way because I know that a lot of people can't say that about their families. But to me, it's just like such an important part of who I am that it just seemed natural to do that for Kira and to juxtapose that against Gage, who really doesn't have a relationship with his family, his extended family. He doesn't have siblings, or he didn't think he did. And so, I wanted to explore those things, and I really think it fleshes her out as a person. And it makes her interesting too, because she's such a figure of scandal. People don't really understand her, but she still has this family around her that is protective of her because they are family, you know what I mean? And so they love her even though she's odd, and so, I relate to that. And so I think that was a big part of it. It was just, I think I think that may be, now that I'm saying it, the biggest part of me that Kira has, that family bond, that family, the importance of it. So,
well, I knew you came from a big family, so that was a lead-in. So, will you tell us a little bit about what's happening next for them?
Sure. So,
these 3, are you going? Well, of course, in those days there was no ultrasound, so we don't know whether they're going to have a girl or a boy, and you're not going to tell us that either.
I'm not going to spoil it. You will find out in A Wicked Conceit. I will say that because she's very pregnant at this point. I cannot drag it on any longer. But in a peerless perspective, it's set in the summer of 1832, so there's a little bit of a gap. They are going to Argyll, Scotland, so the far west, for Charlotte and Rye's wedding. So Lady Stratford, Charlotte, her friend, and her cousin Rye. And it's a small gathering. And we met Lord Barbrack in An Artless Demise. He's this kind of, rascal of an old man. He's crotchety, does whatever he wants, says whatever he wants, but he's a hoot. And they're at his home. This is where the wedding takes place. And she's examining his art collection, and she stumbles across some forgeries. And he's not happy about this. And so that's a big part of it. And then a maid is found murdered under one of these paintings. And what's going on? Where did these paintings come from? When were they forged? Why was this maid murdered? So that's the crux of the plot. And of course, they're dragged in to investigate.
So is your background your background's in music, not in art?
It is. Yes, it's music. But I always say this, I think there's an artistic mindset that really helps me with the art aspect of it. And my husband is an artist, and I have a brother who's an artist. And so they help me with some of those things too. And I love art. I do. I've so geeked out on art, especially the last couple months, because working on this plot, I could just go on and on about painters right now. So I love getting to that's the best part of research, when you have a plot that's like something you're really into, and you could just it's like food, you know what I mean? Like just gorge on
it. I agree. Sometimes actually I get so lost in research that and discovering things that almost like, no, that can't be right.
I know. I know, right? Yes. You're like, wait a minute. Yeah.
Oh,
Those are the best though. Like,
I
I don't know,
can't
like, I need to use this.
this, and people think I'm making it up. I've had people actually say, well, in their little reader reviews, and I'm
You
like,
always get those people who think they know better.
what does my husband call it? Teach the teacher. But there are those aspects of so in A Wicked Conceit, what did your research turn up apart from making cult figures out of criminals, which I think is hilarious?
I know, right? It's
I
crazy.
guess they just wanted sensationalism, and that's how they got it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's
Serious fascination with what happens if you break all the rules.
right. Exactly. I think that's a big part of it. And well, there were fun characters too, I'm sure. Right. I mean, think about it,
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know about this. I mean, I did know about Dick Turpin back in the day.
Yes. I mean, there's a multiple of it. That's what's crazy. I did not know about this genre. But yeah, there's a whole subgenre of it, and it died out after Jack Shepherd because of the scandal. I mean, it was William Henry Ainsworth was actually one of the most popular authors. He was huge and he was handsome. So he was just sought after, this guy, and then this ruined him. Like he was
Really?
Yeah, it essentially ruined him, like as far as his, books. Like he was so popular, and then nobody wanted, nobody read him then. It was like, that's why we don't know about him now. We know about Charles Dickens, but we don't know about, but William Henry Ainsworth was bigger, at that time period. So yeah, very interesting, I would say that was a big thing that I found fascinating researching this. And the fact that authors didn't get paid, the playhouses just took their stuff and used it. You got nothing for it, So,
yeah, plagiarized and amazing. But they didn't, when they wrote books, they didn't have copy editors or editors. It was submitted,
right,
and either published or not published.
Correct. Yeah.
I just love the fact that, when you think what we go through.
Right. It was very different. Very different.
Yeah. So what else did your research turn up about this time that you particularly love? What aspect of the period you chose was like a complete eye-opener to you? And you're like, no, that can't be right.
Oh my goodness. I know. I'm trying to think. Because I feel like I've been so deep in the time period now that it's like, maybe I've become inured to some of the stuff.
Yeah,
I'm always surprised by how, I'm not surprised, but it's always interesting to see parallels, because in this time period, there was a lot of, scandals with the police, like that they were corrupt and like, okay, and hello, this summer, what happened? I mean, last summer, it was just, it never, it repeats, you know what I mean? So, and that plays a slight part in the book because you have to be true. Here you have Bonnie Brock, and here you have the Edinburgh police, and here you have Gage and Kira in the middle, so, that part was interesting, but not shocking, I guess I would say. We all know how corrupt the New York police was in the late, 19th century. We all hear these stories, so.
Well, there's nothing new in the
correct. And there was good and there was bad and there was, yeah.
And the older you get, the more cynical you become. And go, why am I not surprised? So I wonder where our friend John is. Do you think he has any questions from?
Hello. Yep. So I do have a few. So before we get into questions from the crowd, Tessa, you've been so generous to give your time tonight to chat with Anna. Can you tell everybody a little bit about the Poppy Redfern series, and also tell us about the new book, In Royal Service to the Queen?
Yes. They kind of take place in a similar time. Poppy Redfern started her time as a ARP girl, checking on blackout in her little village, and perfect, nighttime job, to uncover a murder. And she's also a writer. And then she completes her book. It turns from the book she's writing turns from a romance into a mystery. And then there was a paper shortage because of the war. So it wasn't published, though it was seen by a publisher. And because of that, she's in the second book, she's offered a job with the Crown Film Unit, and she writes short scripts about civilians who did heroic things. And that actually happened. I mean, they did. They used to do these little propaganda shorts. And she gets to write up a little 10-minute movie about the Atta girls, the girls who transported aircraft from manufacturers to airfields. And there's a murder, of course. Mm-hmm. And though I was much more interested in the Atta girls, I had to say, no, concentrate on the plot. So that's for Poppy. And then in June, I can't believe I actually did this. I know Anna has 2 series. For me, writing another book that close up to Poppy had me on edge quite a bit, but it's wholly different. It's a historical novel, and it's about the present Queen's governess. Her name was Marion Crawford, and she became Margaret and Elizabeth's governess when she was 22, and went through the whole abdication with the family when they stopped being the Yorks and became the Windsors. And during the war, they were kept in Windsor Castle. And as the war ends, and she's thinking, maybe I can go back to Scotland and teach, Elizabeth falls in love with Philip, and nobody in the family likes him. And nobody thinks this is a good idea, except for Crawfie. And she supports Elizabeth through her, don't know whether she did or not, but my Crawfie does, supports Elizabeth against her mother. And the ending, I can't tell you the ending because it'll ruin it, but it is based on something that happened between Crawfie and the Queen Mother, who was a very steely individual. And it's a sort of ending of betrayal that was something that was, everyone was aghast at the time in the early 1950s. And now, of course, since then, nobody's aghast at anything that happens in the Windsor family. We're all just like, and basically, my series is coming out in June because of Meghan and Harry going through their shenanigans with the entire royal family. And it just came out in me. And I'm not a royalist, by the way. I'm not one of those people that collects mugs with pictures of the Queen on or anything. And I didn't come from a family who were either. But that's what's happening in June, and I'm really excited about it. And some really good news is that a publishing company in England have bought it.
Oh, that's great.
Which is rare. And I'm like, I'm taking Crawfie home. So that's that. And I have never loved writing anything as much as that. It just like
awesome.
Lots of it.
So as you mentioned, it comes out in June. So if anybody wants to pre-order it, there's a link on the event page, which I've dropped in the chat. So you mentioned a little kind of writing 2 different things. So Anna, we had a question from Renee about writing routines. And so since you do 2 series, do you write one and then stop and write the other, or are you working on them at the same time? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I am never working on a first draft of more than one thing at a time. I don't think I could do that. So I think of it as writing it. That's the first draft for me. I may be editing at different stages. So usually I'm writing one book it's going through copy edits and proofreads or whatever on another book, or sometimes there's a third book and I'm doing promotion on a third book. So I always have multiple projects going at a time, but I'm never doing the same stage of the project, if that makes sense. So I write the Lady Darby book in so many months, and it's, that stage is done, and then I move on to the Verity Kent one or whatever. So yeah.
And how about you, Tessa? Did you finish a Poppy and then start on this new thing, or were you working on them at the same time?
Well, production takes so long. So inevitably what happened was, and I'm now writing another book, right? Because Crawford was done ages ago and then goes into production. And just as you're really into the next book, production says, oh, we want to do copy edit now. And you're like, ah. And then you're trying to get back into a book that you completed a year ago. Yes, but I've never written two books simultaneously, and I don't honestly think I could. Yeah. Because I like the idea of difference, and you get immersed and you get very one-minded, right, Anna?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I know a writer who can go from one manuscript to another in the process, and I think how disciplined she must be to do that.
Right. So Lorelei says, Anna, you mentioned that Kira is odd several times. What do you think makes her so odd that makes people misunderstand her?
Sure. So in this time period, gentlewomen were supposed to be a certain way. You were supposed to be this, polite, demure, beautiful hostess, that you could make wonderful small talk and charm everyone. And that is not Kira. She just is not, that's not where her gifts lie. She feels awkward. She doesn't know why we need to make small talk. I mean, she can converse intelligently about art and, plays and whatever, but she can't just do how's the weather? And, she doesn't understand why you need to do that. And so in social situations, she comes across as odd and awkward and the fact that she is such a gifted portrait artist in a time where gentlewomen, you could dabble in things to the side, but you weren't supposed to have a career or a calling or do anything seriously. And she really just wants to paint. Initially, she just wants to paint. That's the whole reason she married Sir Anthony. She thought that's what she would get to do, that he understood her. Little did she know he had ulterior motives for marrying her. But, so that's for me why she comes across as odd. In that it's for that context. I think nowadays she would be understood. In a modern time period, she would probably flourish depending on, where she's at. So it has to do with definitely has to do with the historical context.
So since you both write historical fiction, when you're doing your research, Wendy, and we've talked about this before with pretty much every historical fiction writer that comes to this door, is that sometimes people forget the fiction part of it and expect it to be 100% historically accurate. So when you're doing your research and you can't find like maybe one specific thing or one nugget, at what point do you just say, you know what, I'm just going to make this up. If I couldn't find this, nobody else could find it. Or how do you decide what stuff you need to keep digging on? Let's start with
Anna. I think it depends on how important it is to the plot. If it's something that it doesn't really matter and it's just taking a lot of time and I can't find it, I'm more likely to give up quicker or just change it. I can't find this, so let's just not take the chance. Let's just do this instead. So, but if it's really critical to the plot, I dig a lot longer, I would say. And even with language, because sometimes you're trying to find when was this phrase first used, or a word, and like I said, sometimes I wing it. I'm like, oh, hopefully, this is okay. But it's usually an educated guess, obviously. And sometimes I'll be like, well, I'm not going to chance it. I really can't find anything. So I guess I'll just have to change this, even though I love this, So I think it's weighing the balance of it. So.
Yeah.
And how about you, Tessa? Anything to add?
Yeah, especially since I wrote in Royal Service to the Queen is about a real person. She existed. Not much is known about her. I take the view that the characters are mine. Place and time, I'm very as scrupulous as I can be. And if I run into an area that I don't know anything about, I find something else. But the characters are mine. And people were, well, I don't think the governess to the Princess Elizabeth would have said that. Well, Mycroft, does. That's my fave. But place and time, I think, is important too, because that's your authenticity.
Well, it informs your characters too.
Yeah,
I mean, that will tell you what they will do.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell.
So we got just a few more minutes. So before we head out, we're going to start with Anna. What is something that you've read recently that you've loved?
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think here. I just read, oh my goodness, I'm going to blank what it's called. I just blurbed it. Murder at Mallowan Hall. It comes out in the fall. It's by, darn it. It's Colleen something, but it's Murder at Mallowan Hall. It's good. It's really good. It's actually set, at Agatha Christie's second husband's their home, which is it's very fictional, but she's the housekeeper. The main character is the housekeeper for Agatha Christie. So that was really good. It comes out, I don't remember when, but it comes out in the fall. So
Colleen Cambridge is the author.
Thank you. I was like, it's her it's a pen name. Her real name's Colleen, but I couldn't remember what her new pen name was. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, I wonder if I've got it anywhere. It's research, I'm afraid, because I'm in the middle of writing something about an Edwardian haute couturier. And it's something that I sent to England for, and it arrived. And it's a publication by the Victoria and Albert Museum, and it's about underwear. Because women's underwear was nothing to joke about and was pretty layered and corsetry. It's the most amazing thing I've read in a long time. And it's beautifully illustrated. So it's kind of like Victoria's Secret through the ages.
Sometimes the most nuanced, I mean, like type things. I mean, I read a book called Punch, like earlier this year. I'm trying to think of who it's by. Will Wondrich, I think is his last name. Anyway, and it's just fabulous. It's just about punch through time, like the alcoholic punch, what people drank before cocktails.
Oh, what they drank.
Yeah, I mean, like, and these, there's all these recipes and all these anecdotes about where these punch recipes came from. And these, the boozing up 17th century, gentlemen. I mean, it's fabulous. It's great. It's hilarious too. So
it was about British punch, right?
I mean, it's all different kinds. From India, from America. There's colonial recipes. I mean, and stories. So it's really interesting. So it's good stuff.
Those little finds when you come across something so incredibly detailed. Yeah.
And so, Anna, you mentioned early in the chat that you had been reading Claire Harmon's Murder by the Book, and it kind of really helped inspire this. So was it something that you had picked up specifically to read for research, or were you just reading it for pleasure and then it sparked?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. I don't actually remember why I picked it up. I don't, maybe somebody had recommended it to me or it just popped up, but and it just sounded, oh, this sounds really good. And then once I started reading it, I realized it was perfect for a plot. I'm not sure, but it's great. I definitely recommend it. So.
Oh, can I just add something that I read and finished? Kate Quinn's Rose Code about Bletchley Park, which my father was at Bletchley Park, which was where they cracked the code, the Enigma code. And I mean, I know that old house. It's now a museum. And she does a phenomenal job of bringing that whole time alive. And that's really worth a read.
Yeah, she's great. We've had lots of customers come in recently and said that they've just finished that and loved it as well. So just to recap for anybody who might have joined us late, we've been chatting with Annalee Huber, whose newest book in her Lady Darby series, A Wicked Conceit, just came out today. And we've been joined by Tessa Arlen, whose most recent release is Poppy Redfern and the Fatal Flyers, which is the second in her Poppy Redfern series. Tessa will also have In Royal Service to the Queen coming out in June, and Anna will have her new Verity Kent book, Murder Most Fair, out in August. If you missed any part of the chat, once we are done tonight, YouTube and Facebook will archive them, so you'll be able to watch them from the beginning, as well as I mentioned, any of the other virtual events that we've done up there. There's pretty much something for anybody, any subgenre of mystery author, they're all there. And I also wanted to mention we've got coming up on Thursday night, the 8th, we're going to be chatting with Erica Ruth Neubauer and Susanna Calkins about the second book in Erica Ruth Neubauer's series, which we're all big fans of. At 1 o'clock on Friday the 9th, I'm going to be chatting with Carrie Barrett about her book, The Smuggler's Daughter, which, as I said, is sort of a Jamaica in meets police procedural thing. I'm super excited. I never get to do the afternoon events. McKenna always does them. And I'm like, I'm staying home and doing the afternoon event this week. I'm so excited about this book. And then we're also super excited. We're going to be chatting with C.S. Harris, whose new book came out today. She and Victoria Thompson are going to be in conversation with each other on April 28th. So lots of really great stuff coming up. Anna and Tessa, thank you so much. It was so fun chatting with you this evening.
Thank you. It was fun.
It really was.
You guys take care, and we'll see you soon.
And you too.
You too.
Bye.